Should you retire as soon as possible? I'll give you 8 reasons why you should, but only if you judge if it makes sense to you. Now first, almost everyone says you need to maximize your Social Security benefits, but nothing can be further from the truth. But here are the reasons why, and one of them is actually going to shock you because it has to deal with your spouse, which is exactly the opposite you would do in other circumstances. Now the first thing we have to talk today is that you're trading today for tomorrow. When you get money today, you're trading it for today. Now think about it. Today is your healthiest day of your life, which means that you could do the most you want, the things you want to do. You're not going to be healthier as you age. So as you continue to age, there's simply things that you won't be able to do. Now, the most amount of enjoyment you're going to get out of your retirement is going to be now. If a 90-year-old billionaire would trade all of their money in exchange for being 18, they would do it instantly. So people look at assets completely wrong, which is also reason number 2. So the second reason is your health history. And if you haven't already looked at your health issues, you need to start looking at them now and determine when that break-even point and if you're going to make it according to the historical records of your family. Look at your mother and father, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents. All of those things become a certain photograph of your health history. So you need to know exactly how you're going to plan that. You don't get any extra money afterwards. So you have to grab a calculator and look at the break-even point. Now, if you start at 62 versus 67, that break-even point is 78 years and 8 months. I actually know off the top of my head. And when you get to the age of 70, when you get the highest amount, actually the break-even point is a little after the age of 80. Now, if you die early, of course, it always works better to take the money today. And one more final thing I'm going to add in there, which is that everyone thinks they're going to die early. People say, I don't know if I'll ever reach that age, but you are shocked that you made it this far, right? And if you've made it this far, you have to be more objective and not emotional about the fact that you don't think that you're going to live that long. Right now, if you made it this far, the odds of you making it to your 80s are very high. Now, the third is that people value assets more than income, which is exactly the opposite of how you need to look at retirement. And by doing this, it's going to leave you continually frustrated and over planning. Think about it. If you had more money coming in, think of people with pensions. Think of people who had all those pensions in the 1980s, which are now all gone, versus people now who work for some component of the government, whether in schools, military, etc. They're typically much happier in retirement than people that tried going for the bigger asset class. Now, I'm not telling you to go back into a time machine and try to undo that, but what I'm saying is that income is far more important than assets. Now, what this means is having that income frees you up to enjoy the things that you want to do when you still can. This is why you didn't quit your job to become a day trader, because you valued income today more than guessing tomorrow. Assets are guessing, income is guaranteed. Now, there's only 3 things that give you lifetime income. And actually, one of them doesn't give you full life, but you'll go through this right now. First is your Social Security benefits, which is the reason for this. Some pensions are for your entire lifetime, and there's also what's called a guaranteed lifetime income annuity. Those are the only 3 things which guarantee you lifetime income. So you can't go back in that time machine, as I mentioned before, but you can focus on what you can do to create the most amount of income, so this way you can take longevity risk off the table, which is actually your worst risk. And if you can do that, you're going to enjoy every other day. Now, number 4 is that your body's breaking. You're in one of those jobs that just beat you up. You're a mechanic, a roofer, something which has really been beating you up. Now, when I was younger, I used to do a lot more manual work, and I can tell you that it's much harder to do as you age, especially when you hit 62. So you have to factor that in, that could you continue to do that? But before I tell you just to give up and stop and not think about that, that goes into the 5th, which is what's called a delayed hybrid retirement. Think about this. If you enjoy your life in your 60s when you can move, your go-go years they call them, you might want to enjoy those as much as you humanly can. And then when you're starting to go slower, there's more problems for you, you might actually want to go back to work then. They need jobs everywhere. You always see everyone's looking for jobs right now. Young people aren't working. The great retirement, as they called it, which happened during COVID when people just stopped working, they're looking for employees constantly. So working in a place like a Lowe's or a Home Depot or any of the places that love having retirees and they love knowing that you have a great work ethic could be a great place. This means that you can enjoy your money today, try to enjoy your retirement, and then go back and have a hybrid retirement. That hybrid retirement can actually do a few things. It can actually increase your Social Security benefits later on. This actually happened to a friend of mine who was actually my best teacher when I was in elementary school. We became friends later on, I ran into a pizza shop, we were talking, and he told me that he just got bored of retirement. He enjoyed himself, went out, and then he was going back and he's a teacher all over again later in life. Now, the fifth is about taking care of the people that you love the most. And if any of them have disabilities or any other issues, they can't receive those benefits until you start to claim yours, which means that once you start to claim those benefits and then they can get those benefits, you might actually get a higher benefit by taking it earlier. So think about that. Now, number 6 is maximizing income for your spouse. Now, usually what that means is doing exactly the opposite of taking Social Security at the age of 62. Usually want to take it at 67, 70, but in this case, think of it another way. If you are going to die or you think you're going to die, having more money earlier could be a better way for your wife to enjoy her retirement, because the break-even point, as I mentioned before, between 62 and 67 is actually 78 years and 8 months. Which means if you pretty much know either from your work history or health history that you're not going to make it to 78, you're going to only live to 72, that means you're going to get all those extra years of income for you and your wife. Now, this is what my grandfather did. He knew that he had massive health issues before he ever got to Social Security, so he took it out earlier knowing it would give him more money before he would die. And he was pretty much diagnosed he was going to die at the age of 49 because he had angina and tons of other issues. He smoked like a chimney. And so he actually lived to his 70s, but for him, it was a much better thing to get the money earlier. Now, again, before I tell you this, don't think that, oh yeah, I'm going to die. Make sure you think that you actually are having some kind of issue. This is not about you making it up. My grandmother is still alive. She's 94. Now, would it have been better for her to wait longer in retirement? Probably. But the point is that for him, it was better for him to take care of all the bills that he had by retiring early. Now, number 7 is overestimating what you need as you age. People, when they plan, factor in inflation, future issues, but what they don't factor into is that your overall expenses are going to go down. Typically, your mortgage is paid. Typically, you go less places, you eat less food, you go out less. I look at my father, he eats far, far less than he did even from his 60s. But you need to stop overemphasizing your spending and look at it more realistically. You're not going to spend the same at 90 as you do at 65. So looking at the rates of inflation or discretionary income is very important, but it's a fraction when you look at the overall amount that you're spending while aging, because you do buy less clothes, less food, and you keep the same car longer. Number 8 is they may change the age of retirement and add more means testing. Already, Social Security is means tested, and it can only get worse as there's more retirees coming into the system. There's over 10,000 a day retiring right now in the baby boomer generation. The legislation they added in 1984 to start taxing Social Security only got worse in 1995. They've already increased the full retirement age from 65 to 67. So in a certain way, you're locking in your benefits over a possible change. Now that could be in some way sensationalizing or fear-mongering to you, but it's not. It's actually a pattern, and the pattern is proving itself out over and over again. And it might be worth it to you if every other factor that I mentioned before is an issue. They may change things in the future, but at least you're locking in your benefits today. Now, I told my father not to retire as early as possible, and here are the 5 reasons you shouldn't, right over here, which gives you a full perspective on whether or not you should wait.